They are not often seen at the top of many people's lists, and they can somewhat be embarrassing to admit to our friends that we get a kick out of them. They can, however, at times hold a special place in our hearts and memories, for either nostalgic reasons or for the fun and absurdity they brought to the screen. MFP presents 10 guilty pleasure car chase movies. Made as an homage to the Roger Corman grindhouse era of the 70s, Drive Angry owes a lot of its style to the old classics such as Race with the Devil and High Plains Drifter, and was a story that was able to get the attention of Nicolas Cage, who loved the idea and wanted to take part. Directed by Patrick Lussier, who wrote the screenplay along with Todd Farmer, after the two had found success together with the remake of My Bloody Valentine, and were able to get the story financially backed with a budget of an estimated $50 million. With the story focusing on Nicolas Cage's character of Milton, who escaped from hell to come back to save his baby granddaughter from being sacrificed by a group of cultists. Drive Angry was comfortable in chasing a hard R for its release, as shown through its action and gore and sex appeal. The director and producers opted to hire still fresh Amber Heard to play the role of Piper, a waitress who picks up Cage's character along the way on his quest and joins him. Part of the reasons for Heard's casting was due to her looks, and that she was said seemed as though she was able to throw a punch, and it turned out this was something that played out during production, as it was alleged she made contact with several of the cast members she was filmed fighting on screen. The film is a muscle car's lover's delight, with such classics being showcased as the all-car chase reliable 1969 Dodge Charger RT, a 1957 Chevrolet 150, a 1968 Chevrolet Camaro, and a 1971 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu SS. Opting for the gimmick of filming the movie in 3D, which is thought is what led to Drive Angry's poor reception, as it only made close to $41 million at the box office worldwide. Drive Angry is one of those movies where it is best to leave behind all expectations at the door, and simply enjoy it as a schlockfest of action and carnage with little to no depth, yet plenty of entertaining moments.
How was that?
I've seen better.
Hi, Buford. Hello, you handsome sumbitch.
With the first entry being a box office hit, it seems like an almost bad idea not to follow up with a sequel, to be called Smoking the Bandit 2. Being released the same year with its trilogy counterpart, The Empire Strikes Back, Bandit 2 is once again up against some stiff competition. With the original cast and crew returning, this was a case of trying to catch lightning in a bottle once more. It is shown that since the events of the first film, Burt Reynolds' Bandit has fallen into alcoholism and is living mostly off his ego after selling his first Trans Am for booze.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Though having broken up with Sally Field's Frog, she is quick to return to Bandit's aid after a call from Jerry Reed's Snowman, this time for the assignment to transport a large crate, which turns out to be an elephant, from Miami to Dallas, only to be pursued once more by Sheriff Buford T. Justice as the usual antics follow. With a sales boost in Trans Ams due to the hit original, Pontiac was more than happy to supply the production with a then new 1980 model with a 4.9-litre turbocharged V8 said to produce 210 horsepower. It was found by the crew, however, to be less than impressive on the road and needed some nitrous oxide added in order for it to show off more power than was stock available. Director Hal Needham wanted to have a showstopper to take place at Lakewood Park, Atlanta, Georgia, where one of the oldest roller coasters in the nation was set up for a stunt to be performed and be demolished on screen on February the 11th, 1980, which coincided with Burt Reynolds' 44th birthday. The budget for this sequel was raised from $4.3 million of the original to $17 million and had the biggest opening week at the box office in history at that time. However, unlike the original that grossed almost $130 million, Smoking the Bandit 2 would only gross around $66 million, and would be the last time the prime cast and crew would work together on another Bandit film.
Hey, Daddy, look at that big, ugly alligator.
That reminds me, I got a call your mama tonight.
What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.
Love it or hate it, the now going on 10 installments Fast and Furious franchise still seems to be drawing in young crowds and large amounts of money. Originally titled Redline, The Fast and the Furious was seen as one of the first, if not more famous, of the then early 2000s car chase movies that introduced the cinema world to the fun and speed that was to be known as JDMs, or Japanese domestic market cars, that were popular in the mod circuit, that would bring these lower end 4-cylinder vehicles to produce amazing street speed numbers. With the 1994 Toyota Supra Mark IV and the 1970 Dodge Charger RT taking center stage towards the end of the film, other vehicle highlights that show up early in the movie are a 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse, usually seen with a 4G 6.3 motor, where it has been said that the motor used was a Mitsubishi 2-litre dual overhead cam 420A, 140 horsepower naturally aspirated. The other car drawing fan notice is Vin Diesel's character of Dom's 1993 Mazda RX-7, which carried originally a 13B FD rotary engine with 255 horsepower in stock form, which was given basic performance upgrades and equipped with a full Veilside Combat 2 body kit. With the film story being that of an undercover FBI agent, Brian O'Connor, played by the late Paul Walker, trying to find a way to infiltrate a group of street racers in order to find out who is behind a series of highway robberies of freight trucks, only to discover his new friends, being that led of still fresh at the time Vin Diesel, are the ones that are behind the thefts. The film and story are basically lifted almost beat for beat from the Keanu Reeves Patrick Swayze action classic Point Break, yet did manage to make a greater name for itself, and has been able to stay relevant and influential through its franchise over 20 years since its release. Though many would argue by this stage, it's just a question of how much more outlandish can these movies actually get.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
Coming up from some less than successful movies, director Adam Rifkin wrote and made the 1994 independent film The Chase, starring Charlie Sheen and Christy Swanson, on a low budget and with the help of some of his actor friends, who were cast in order to help make an action feature to fit in with what was popular in Hollywood at the time and demanded of Rifkin by producers. Telling the story of escaped soon-to-be convict Jack Hammond, played by Sheen, while at a gas station uses a candy bar to kidnap a hostage in order to avoid being captured by police. Deciding to flee with his captive of Natalie, played by Swanson, who is shown to be the daughter of a local billionaire industrialist, Hammond opts to take her new 1993 red BMW 325 Coupe as his getaway vehicle. Although the BMW 325 E36 with its 2.5-litre inline-6 engine with 189 horsepower output and a top speed of 233 km per hour was the main car within the film, its use was mostly that of steady cruising and evasion when needed while travelling down the Californian freeway to the Mexican border. The action and stunts would come from the police vehicles speeding and crashing and giving chase, along with a custom 1987 Ford Bronco, which would find its end in a fiery explosion driven by two wannabe heroes trying to ram into the BMW, and the same model of which would make an ironic appearance later that year in the infamous O.J. Simpson highway police chase. Part of the fun comes from seeing several cameos portrayed in the film, including a supporting role by singer-comedian Henry Rollins, and in smaller parts, Red Hot Chili Peppers members Flea and Anthony Kiedis. Playing on a number of the audacities when it comes to how the media of the time and even today cover real-life high-speed chases of this nature, the comedy plays loose and fast within this movie, where so many of the characters are portrayed to their extreme in terms of energy and ridiculousness.
Oh, girlfriend! Oh, girlfriend!
They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special.
The last live-action film that was authorized by Walt Disney himself before his death, The Love Bug, is a 1968 family-friendly story where the star of the picture is a wacky little VW Beetle with a mind of its own and able to perform some incredible feats of racing and stunts. Originally based on a story called Carboy Girl, the name was later changed and one of the longest car-based franchises was born, with 6 entries in a 5-episode TV series as of to date being produced. Given the name Herbie thanks to comedian and Love Bug co-star Buddy Hackett, and one of his onstage jokes being heard by producer Bill Waltz mentioning the name, who fell in love with it and decided to use it to identify the four-wheeled star of the film. Presenting Dean Jones as a down-on-his-luck racer Jim Douglas who needs a drive, the Love Bug was to play out about a magical car that, without any explanation or backstory, was shown as a sentient vehicle with a personality, and despite being seen as a joke at first given its small stature, would show off to become something quite special for its owner, and those who saw what it was capable of on the racetrack. Made to look like a beige 1963 Volkswagen Type 1 ragtop Beetle, it is said around 8 cars were obtained, and a number of those used were base model 1957s and 1960s. Originally equipped with a stock 1.2-litre opposed 4-cylinder engine with just under 40 brake horsepower, several of the cars used for production were modified for various tasks, from being cut in half and given front and rear motors, a 3-wheel mock-up car, and including one powered by a 1.6-litre 90 horsepower Porsche 356 engine, used more for the racing scenes. Herbie and its number 53 and blue and red striped decal is still an iconic character of Disney and car chase movies, and a treat that often gets rediscovered by later generations of young people. Even now, some 55 years later, it is hard not to hear the original Love Bug theme score by George Burns and not get a warm feeling of nostalgia from it.
This may be a fast takeoff. Now.
Oh, can you fix it then?
Honey, I got a tool that'll fix anything.
Following up on the 1981 fan favourite, Cannonball Run 2 would bring back almost all the original cast and see star Burt Reynolds and others in the likes of Dom DeLuise, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Jamie Farr and Jackie Chan undertake the infamous Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash once more. Panned by several critics and fans of the original as being an inferior retread, the film once again opens with the Lamborghini Countach chase and Ray Stevens blaring out the song Cannonball, this time with the addition of replacing the original actresses playing Jill and Marcy, with Catherine Bach and Susan Anton taking over the roles. Still retaining a number of its childlike humour, the sequel felt like it took itself less serious than the original outing, and with one of the complaints made by film critics Siskel and Ebert being that the final chase was so cheap it had to be animated. not shying away from presenting some wonderful collection of cars once more, even to the point of including custom appearance 1974 Ford F-250 Bigfoot that was hugely popular at the time due to the then still new monster truck craze sweeping the world. Other cars featured were a 1984 Chevrolet Corvette C4, a 1984 Mitsubishi Starion, and a 1984 Dodge Daytona, driven by guest star Frank Sinatra, which with the inclusions of honorary member Shirley MacLaine and originals Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. brought back together the Rat Pack once more on screen. Said to be budgeted at $22 million, Cannonball Run 2 only grossed just over $56 million, which was a massive drop compared to the original $160 million earnings. However, nonetheless, the film still has its fans, and those who enjoy its comedy hijinks and all-round fun to be had, for those who are able to switch off and enjoy the film for what it is.
You know, Marcy, we've got this routine down. Yeah? I think we're ready for the cannonball. Oh, yeah, I think so.
A remake of the Roger Corman classic, Death Race borrows loosely from the 1975 film and brings in its own story elements, yet keeping several identities from the original. One of which being the lead character Frankenstein, who was the main protagonist of the story, which was played by David Carradine, who voiced the character in this film in the first 5-minute opening, only to be played as a replacement by car chase favourite Jason Statham. Set in a future where the economy has been brought to its knees, and the government have created a draconian society, where an internet program called Death Race is the #1 show used to keep people from uprising, showcasing prisoners battling to the death with highly modified vehicles, equipped with bulletproof shells and automatic weapons. The race is one of pure violence and sex appeal, with fast cars and gorgeous women. The hero of Death Race is a masked character known as Frankenstein, who due to his death and huge public popularity, is needed to be replaced. In comes newly convicted, falsely accused former race driver Jensen Ames, said to be named after the Jensen Interceptor, played by Statham, who was brought in to keep the show going and the public at bay. Borrowing more cues from Mad Max 2 with its vehicle designs and grittiness, writer-director Paul W.S. Anderson focuses more on the explosive action, creating a much darker look than the original with its bleak setting and story. The main vehicle of choice here was the then still new redesign, made to be inspired by the original 1965 release 2006 Mustang GT, with its highest equipped option from the factory being a 4.6 litre V8 producing 300 horsepower. Within the film, the car is claimed to be a 5.4 litre V8 Roush with a Ford Racing supercharger producing 850 horsepower and around 700 pound-feet of torque. With its fun, self-aware attitude, the film is indeed a fan favourite, spawning a small franchise, whereas of 2018, 4 installments have been made. Going up against the Michael Caine original, 2003's The Italian Job was already facing an uphill battle when the decision was made to remake the campy fun 1969 classic. Bearing little story with the original film, as it was played more straight, the Mark Wahlberg Charlize Theron starring heist film was willing to at least be its own story and not be a total retread. However, the one element that was to make a welcome comeback, and the one thing that perhaps stood out most, was the reintroduction of 3 red, white and blue Mini Coopers and their amazing on-screen camera performances. Outside of Michael Caine and his selection of Get Out of Jail Present, or the literal cliffhanger ending of the original, the stars of the 1969 Italian Job were the 1967 Austin Mini Cooper Mark Is. Here for the remake, the wise move was made to bring in the Minis, with the 2003 Mini Cooper R50, which came with a 4-cylinder 1.6 litre 114 horsepower engine, which was able to reach an impressive 119 mph top speed. It was as a direct result of this film, showcasing the nimble yet stylish Mini, which 32 was said to be given to the production, did the car once more fall back into popularity among car buyers, and is still a popular choice even to this day. Given the close proximity, director F. Gary Gray wanted to film the driving in action. The lead actors, including Wahlberg, Theron and Jason Statham, were taken to stunt driving school to be taught how to handle as much of the driving as possible within reason, with most of the cast acknowledging that it was Charlize Theron that proved to be the better driver among the group. Part of the slew of the early 21st century car chase films that came and went at the time, the 2003 Italian Job may not be as regarded as its original 1969 inspiration, yet is still a fun treat to watch now and again 20 years on.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, sweetheart.
The one film that gets its share of love and hate at almost equal measure, especially in the latter when compared to its 1974 original, Gone in 60 Seconds from 2000 starring Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie, seems to be that one guilty pleasure for many that has slowly been tucked away in the history books. With an updated premise of the idea of boosting 50 high-end sports and muscle cars all within the span of one night, the 2000 remake would showcase the wild, unhinged attitude, still at the heart of his popularity, of Nicolas Cage, hired to play the part of Memphis Reigns, a retired car thief called in to help get his little brother out of a bad deal gone wrong. With a mix of young and old cast, and plenty of style over substance moments, with an array of wonderful cars that show up for less than 10 seconds on screen at a time for the most part. Yet if there was one true star of the film that people remember the most, it would have to be the custom 1967 Shelby Silver and Black GT500. Based on the 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback, the GT500s, produced by famed American race driver and car builder Carroll Shelby, came equipped with the famous 428 cubic inch V8, producing over 355 horsepower. For the film, 11 Mustang Fastbacks were obtained by the production, and built from designs created by Steve Stanford, and were used for various parts within the movie. Gone in 60 Seconds was a modest success, as its over $200 million in total worldwide box office fell short of expectations. The car remains the one aspect that makes sure this film stays relevant for a number of people who still enjoy revisiting it to watch every now and again.
There she is. Yep. There's Eleanor.
Thunderdome. How do I get in there?
That's easy. Pick a fight.
With such a high target to hit, it was already a situation for the third installment in the Mad Max franchise beyond Thunderdome of how could it possibly be better than the last one. After the success of Mad Max 2, Warner Brothers commissioned George Miller and production partner Byron Kennedy to start work on the follow-up. The end result was that of mixed reactions and a troubled production before cameras began to roll, where on July 17, 1983, tragedy would strike when at the time 33-year-old Byron Kennedy died in a helicopter crash, of which he was piloting in the Blue Mountains National Park of Australia. It is thought that due to the loss of his partner and close friend, director George Miller was not fully on board with the contracted production of the next film, and director George Ogilvy was brought in to co-direct. Telling the story of Max having his possessions, that of not fully identified, heavily custom Ford V8, most likely a 1975 Fairlane ZG, hijacked, and making his way to a place called Bartertown, where he meets the character of Auntie Entity, played by Tina Turner, who governs her creation of a town of trade and methane fuel, who offers to re-equip what was stolen from Max for a task of murder. For many, it is the first half of the film that holds the most interest, where the second half, which sees Max rescued in the desert by a group of lost tribal children, does the film take a dive. Being released as a PG-13, Beyond Thunderdome lacked many of the hardcore moments of the first two R-rated films, and the end chase feels like a retread of the second film's climactic escape. Surprisingly though, Beyond Thunderdome was well received by critics, especially famed duo Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, who praised this sequel over the second one, and was seen as one of Roger Ebert's best films for 1985. Thunderdome has gathered more fans who discovered some of the behind-the-scenes details that led to this supposed drop in quality, and who appreciate the film more for what it is, as opposed to what it was following up only a few years earlier.
Well, ain't we a pair? Raggedy Man.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like, subscribe and bell icon in order to help this channel grow and to bring you more content such as this one, as your support is what keeps this channel going.